जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा। श्री गुरु चरण पद्मा केवल भक्ति सद्मा। केवल भक्ति सद्मा। बंदो मुई सावधान माते बंदो मुई सावधान माते जहार प्रसादे बाये भवतोरियो जहाँ जहार प्रसादे बाये भवतोरियो जहाँ। कृष्ण प्राप्ति होई जहाँ होते कृष्ण प्राप्ति होई जहाँ होते गुरु मुख पद्मा वाक्या चित्ते कोरिया क्या। गुरु मुख पद्मा वाक्या चित्ते कोरिया क्या। और न कोरी हो मने आशा और न कोरी हो मने आशा। श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति। श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति। जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहाँ रचरित वेद गाय जहाँ रचरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनरा बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनरा बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना शिला प्रभुपाद लोकेरा जीवाना प्रभु कर दया देह मोरे पद छाया छाया प्रभु कर दया देह मोरे पद छाया बिजाज गुसुक्री भुवना शिला प्रभुपाद पतिता पवाना दुआ पद लैला शरणा बिजाज गुसुक्री भुवना प्रभु कर दया देह मोरे पद छाया प्रभुपाद पतित पवन दुआ पद लैला शरणा जय प्रभुपदा प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पश्चादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद उदिलो वरुणो पूरब भागे द्विजामनि गौरामनि जागे भक्त समूह लोया साथे गेलो नागर व्राजे ताथई बाजे खोल गन गनाता है जाजरा रोल प्रेम दला दला सोनेरा अंग चरणे नुपुर बाजे मुकुंद माधव जादव हरि बोलो ने बोलो रे वतन बारी नीचे निंदा बसे गेलो रे रति दिवस शरीर साजे एमन दुर्लभ मानव देह पाइया की करो भावना के हो बिना भजिले जशोदा सुत चर में पड़ बेला आजे उदितो सपना हईबे आस्था दीना गेलो बोले हईबे व्यस्ता तबे केनो एबे आलस होय न बजरी हृदय जीवन वनित्या जान हसार ताहे नाना विधा विपद बाज नाम श्रेया करे जतने तुमी ताक आपन काजे जीवेरा कल्याण साधन का जगते आसिए मधुर नाम अविद्याति मेरा तपना रूप हृदय गगने विराजे कृष्ण नाम सुधा करिया पान जुराओ भक्ति विनोद प्राण नाम बिना के छो नहीं तो और 14 भुवन मागे नाम बिना किछु नहीं तो और 14 भुवन माजे हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Jaya Radhe Shyam, Jaya Radhe Shyam. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol.
Gaur Premanandi, Hare 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 Vo, Jaya Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa, Paribrajacacharya Stotara Sri Sriman Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa, Paribrajacacharya Stotara Sri Sriman Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Gauri Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Kiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Nam Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Nam San Kirtan Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Go Premanandi Hari 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 Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Hare Krishna. So I'm going to read Nectar of the Month from the BBT newsletter. And this is by Vaisheshika Prabhu. And he's titled it, Ready, Get Sets, and Go. There's a big push on right now to distribute thousands of full sets of Srila Prabhupada's books. And the target date for ordering all these sets is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Centennial Disappearance Day on June 26th. Srila Prabhupada writes, I have also heard that you are making plans for a very large order of my books from the BBT to be sold on a door-to-door basis on the style of the encyclopedia sales. If you can do this, it will revolutionize our book distribution and afford greater spreading of Krishna consciousness than any book distribution thus far. I want that every respectable person has a full set of Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita in his home. In January of this year, the North American Temple Presidents and GBC set an electrifying goal to collectively distribute at least 1,500 Srimad Bhagavatam sets and 500 Chaitanya Charitamrita sets before the end of 2014. Since then, the order takers at the BBT report that there has been a noticeable increase in calls from devotees ordering full sets of books. Notably, Ramabhadra Prabhu, temple president of Brooklyn, New York, ordered 108 Srimad Bhagavatam sets the day after the temple president's meeting, and he wasn't even there. Also, the devotees at Silicon of ISKCON Valley, going door to door, office to office, as well as by presenting them within their own temple, distributed 182 Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita sets in just 30 days before Gaur Purnima. His Holiness Ramapad Swami recently wrote, "In the course of my travels in North America since our January North American Leadership Sangha meeting, I hear everywhere an excitement to increase book distribution for 2014 above the efforts performed in 2013 in almost one singular voice. Sell sets of Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. From this informal survey, I am 100% sure that our 2014 goal will be easily smashed. I have already taken part in several Srimad Bhagavatam installations this year, despite being in India for nearly half of the first quarter of the year. Place your orders soon, Prabhus." So now the race is on to order sets from the BBT and to start distributing them. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the pioneer of the modern Sankirtan movement. Let us please him by ordering our sets before his centennial disappearance date, Thursday, June 26th. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ready, get sets, and go. And you can, there's a way to have a video version of this message that must be Vaisheshika speaking. You go to tiny.cc, get sets, and go. So anyway, our temple is trying, as always, Alachua with book distribution, the most devotees in the whole North America, and a very tiny book distribution score, but we're trying harder. And we printed these cards, Srimad Bhagavatam, one for Chaitanya Charitamrita, so that people who come up to our book stand can take these and start to consider the benefits of having Bhagavatam in their house. But certainly every single solitary devotee of this temple can have a set of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamritas in their house. We're selling them at the BBT cost, so that's easy. We ship them and deliver them to you. What Ramapad Swami was saying about installation, if you have a guest or a colleague or someone who would like this set of these books, they actually can be installed in the home as installing a deity. It's a little ceremony that's done. It's quite nice and it makes it very special. But anyway, we're encouraging devotees to do this. We have sold a few sets already, our temple, and we're, we'd like to encourage more. We even have a layaway plan for devotees. If you'd like to have a set of books, but you can't come up with, it's $100 for the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's $251 for Srimad Bhagavatam. If you can't come up with it all at once, we can give you a plan so that you can pay it off over a few months and then get your books. So we're just encouraging you all to take part in that. Clearwater Rath Yatra is Saturday, so if you're going to go by bus, please sign up and get a seat. There's only one bus going, so you'll definitely want to take advantage of that if you can. Also, we're doing cob making today, right, Akuti Prabhu? 9 o'clock today, 9 o'clock tomorrow. If you ever wanted to learn how to work with this natural building material, it's a mixture of clay and sand and straw and makes very hard, rock-solid walls. Come out and learn and help build the wall for the eco-farm and at the same time learn how to do this. So that's today at 9 a.m., tomorrow at 9 a.m., and then we have 2 dates early in May where you can come with your whole family. Kids like this because it's, messy and it's fun to do something and then see a result at the end. So if you'd like to help, you can just see Akuti Prabhu and let her know you're coming. A reminder that we do landscaping out here every single Saturday morning, starting at 8 since the weather's getting hot. If you can do weeding, weeding or anything you can help Madhuri Leelananda. We have 2 big garden beds to clean up, and that takes work, so your help is appreciated. Bhakti Marga Swami will be here tomorrow morning for class. And these are the devotees who assisted their spiritual master in dressing the deities today. Shishi Radha Sham Sundar, Akuti Prabhu, Chota Radha Sham Sundar, Leela Prabhu, Shishi Krishna Balaram, Astasaki Prabhu, Chota Krishna Balaram, Govinda Mohini Prabhu, Shishi Gornitai, Guru Prasad Prabhu, Chota Gornitai. Oh, I'm getting this wrong. Okay, well anyway, these are the devotees who dressed today. Madhuri Gopi Prabhu, dressed Chota Gornitai, and the Gurus in Lord Nishingadev, Ram Narayan, and Dravida Prabhu is giving class. Got that right. And if you want to help do green beans, or should I take them to the ladies' side? I'll take them over there. I thought Charles would be here today. Okay.
There. We can always clap. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chanda Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Paramahamsa, Bhadrakacharya, Ashtottara the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jayam Vishnuvad Paramahamsa, Bhadrakacharya, Ashtottara the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, 1 second. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudирayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, unto Srila Prabhupada, the inspirers, and unto His Holiness Hridayananda Das Goswami and His Grace Gopi Paramadana Prabhu, the translators and commentators of this portion of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 29th day of April 2014 in Alachua, Florida, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 40, the prayers of Akrura, beginning in text 23. I'll read this word by word meanings. Bhagavan, O Supreme Lord, Jiva of living entities, Lokaha, the world, Ayam, this, Mohitaha, bewildered, Tava, your, Maya, by the illusory energy, Aham, Mama, Iti, based on the conceptions of I and my, Asat, false, Graha, whose conception, Brahmyate, is made to wander, Karma, a fruit of work, Vartmasu, along the paths. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mamet, yes sir. Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Ladies? Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam Mohitas Tava Maya Aham Mametya Sadgraho Brahmyate Karma Vartmasu. Bhagavan Jiva Loko Yam mohitastava maya aham amecha sagraho brahmate karma vartmasu. Okay, we're going to read a lot of verses now, so can we turn the lights off so that the devotees can see the screen? Anyone know how to do that before I read the translation? That's good, thank you, that's perfect. Translation: O Supreme Lord, the living entities in this world are bewildered by your illusory energy. Becoming involved in the false concepts of I and my, they are forced to wander along the paths of fruitive work. Text 24. Aham chat matma jagara darata swajanadishu brahmami swapna kalpeshu mudha satyadya vibho. I too am deluded in this way. This is Akrura speaking. I too am deluded in this way, O Almighty Lord, foolishly thinking my body, children, home, wife, money, and followers to be real, though they are actually as unreal as a dream. Anityanatma dukeshu viparhya matiryaham Dvandvaramastamo vishto najane tvatpanak priyam. Thus mistaking the temporary for the eternal, my body for myself, and sources of misery for sources of happiness, I have tried to take pleasure in material dualities. Covered in this way by ignorance, I could not recognize you as the real object of my love. Yata buddho janang hitva patichannang tarun bhavai abhyeti mrigatushnang vai tadvatvaham paranmukaha. Just as a fool overlooks a body of water covered by the vegetation growing in it and chases a mirage, so I have turned away from you. Notseheham kripanadhi kamakarma hatang manaha rodhum pramati bhishchakshar riyaman mitastataha. My intelligence is so crippled that I cannot find the strength to curb my mind, which is disturbed by material desires and activities and constantly dragged here and there by my obstinate senses. Soham tavam hyupagatos masatang dorapam tatchapyaham bhavadanugraha ishamanye pungsom bhavedyarhi samsadanapavargas tvayabjanava sadupasanayamati syat. Being thus fallen, I am approaching your feet for shelter, O Lord, because although the impure can never attain your feet, I think it is nevertheless possible by your mercy. Only when one's material life has ceased, O lotus-naveled Lord, can one develop consciousness of you by serving your pure devotees. Namo Vijnana Matraya Sarva Pratyaya Hetave Purushesha Pradhanaya Brahmane Nanta Shaktaye. Obeisances to the Supreme Absolute Truth, the possessor of unlimited energies. He is the embodiment of pure transcendental knowledge, the source of all kinds of awareness, and the predominator of the forces of nature that rule over the living being. Namaste Vasudevaya Sarvabhuta Kshayaya Cha Rishikesha Namastubhyam Prapannam Pahimam Prabho. O son of Vasudeva, obeisances to you, within whom all living beings reside. O Lord of the mind and senses, again I offer you my obeisances. O Master, please protect me, who am surrendered unto you. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 40th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Prayers of Akrura. So before we go on, as you have noticed, there's no purports here. So I'm going to read a verse related to text 27, in which Akrura prayed, "My intelligence is so crippled that I cannot find the strength to curb my mind, which is disturbed by material desires and activities and constantly dragged here and there by my obstinate senses." So there's one of the prayers of Akrura, one of the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, in which this idea is also expressed, and Prabhupada gives a nice purport here, which I will read. The verse goes like as follows, and Lord, of course, Prahlad is praying too in the Shringadev. Kutra shisha shudisukha megatrishni rupa kvedam kaleva dhamaseshu rajambiroha nirvidyate na tujano yadapiti vidvan kamanalam nodalavai shamayang dorapai. In this material world, every living entity desires some future happiness, which is exactly like a mirage in the desert. Where is water in the desert? Or in other words, where is happiness in this material world? As for this body, what is its value? It is merely a source of various diseases. The so-called philosophers, scientists, and politicians know this very well, but nonetheless, they aspire for temporary happiness. Happiness is very difficult to obtain, but because they are unable to control their senses, they run after the so-called happiness of the material world and never come to the right conclusion. Prabhupada's purport, there is a song in Bengali which states, "I constructed this home for happiness, but unfortunately there was a fire and everything has now been burned to ashes." This illustrates the nature of material happiness. Everyone knows it, but nonetheless one plans to hear or think something very pleasing. Unfortunately, all of one's plans are annihilated in due course of time. There were many politicians who planned empires, supremacy, and control of the world. But in due time, all their plans and empires, and even the politicians themselves, were vanquished. Everyone should take lessons from Prahlad Maharaj about how we are engaged in so-called temporary happiness through bodily exercises for sense enjoyment. All of us repeatedly make plans which are all repeatedly frustrated. Therefore, one should stop such plan making. As one cannot stop a blazing fire by constantly pouring ghee upon it, one cannot satisfy oneself by increasing plans for sense enjoyment. The blazing fire is Bhava Mahadavagni, the forest fire of material existence. This forest fire occurs automatically without endeavor. We want to be happy in the material world, but this will never be possible. We shall simply increase the blazing fire of desires. Our desires cannot be satisfied by illusory thoughts and plans. Rather, we have to follow the instructions of Lord Krishna. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam bhaja. Then we shall be happy. Otherwise, in the name of happiness, we shall continue to suffer miserable conditions. And of course, that phrase from the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita means, give up all other dharmas and simply surrender unto me. Om jnanatimarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmidatam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this verse beginning text 23, which we read, Akrura has changed gears. Up until now, he's been offering obeisances to Krishna and his Leela avatars, various ways. But beginning in text 23, he's winding up his prayers, and he is describing the condition of the materialistic living entities. And he also identifies with them. Here he says here in text 23 that everyone in this world, every living entity, every jiva, is bewildered by your external energy. And the essential result of that bewilderment is the false ego, characterized by I and my. I am this body, and the things in relation to the body are mine. Now this idea is said to be asagraha, a false conception. And asagraha also means that we concoct all kinds of false philosophies based on this misconception. The history of Western philosophy, for instance, is filled with logical positivism, existentialism, hedonism, all kinds of varieties of philosophy. But they're all based on this wrong conception, just like the great equations. If you start out and you make a mistake, 2 and 2 equals 5, then everything you build on the basis of that is wrong. So what's the result of this false philosophy, this false ego that I am this body and I can be the controller and enjoyer of this world? Brahmyate karma vartmasu. They're all wandering on the paths of fruit of activity. And how do we wander? Different bodies, different situations, different families, different species, different universes. But it's still within the boundary of the material world, and therefore it's in the boundary of birth, death, old age, and disease, and suffering. So then Nakura says, I'm not any better than that. He's also identifying himself as a bewildered soul. In fact, he uses that famous word mudha, which I heard was chanted with great enthusiasm. So he says, I am also bewildered. Now what is the content of my bewilderment? I'm thinking that this dreamlike existence, and he says, swapna kalpeshu, consisting of my body, and extensions of the body, children, family, the money, relatives, etc. Now, he uses the same word, brahmami. Brahmami means two things. It means wander and also bewildered. So in this context, I am deluded. And I'm also wandering amongst them. Amongst these temporary manifestations of the material world, which I developed an extreme attachment for, but which ultimately are taken away from me. They disappear just as my own body disappears. So I'm thinking this swapna is satya. I'm thinking that these essentially dreamlike constructions are real, are eternally real, sat. And in this way I become a fool. And then he describes the result of this bewilderment. Anityanatma dukkhe shuva parya materiaham. This verse, when I first read it, struck me so much, I memorized the whole section here. So, think about it. That which is anitya. What is anitya? Our body and our bodily situation. Everything in this material world that we value so much, that we identify with. It is said that if someone lives in a house for a while or an apartment, that moving out of that is almost like dying. The trauma of moving out, isn't it? And it's the same thing. This is also a house, right? We've known it very well. But really it's not our own house. It's an apartment. We're only renting, right? But we identify with it so much that when we're finally evicted, it's a huge traumatic experience called death. So the little deaths of having to be jerked out of our situation that we have identified with. We built a little situation that we're comfortable in, but time doesn't allow us to stay in it. The relationships we have with the people, the pets, the living entities, the things, they're all temporary. And so we're constantly frustrated. So this is anitya. I'm thinking anitya. Isn't it? What is the most amazing thing? Yamaraj was asked by his father. Yudhishthira was asked by his father, Yamaraj, what's the most amazing thing? This was the last of the questions that he needed to answer. Right? Remember that? And what was the result of what was the answer? Ahanyahani bhutani gachanti himalayam sheshakstavanamichanti kimaschayam atakparam. The last line means, what could be more amazing than this? Day by day, living entities, all living entities, human beings, are being dragged off to Yamaraj. In other words, they're dying. Gachanti Himalayam. They're forced to go to the Yamaraj's abode for judgment. They die. And yet those who are left, Shesha, the remnants, they're thinking, I'm going to make a permanent situation here. Now, in the back of the mind, everybody knows that you can't make it permanent. But we live as if we can. Because as living entities, We want that permanent situation in the spiritual world. That's our actual nature. So in our bewilderment, we're trying to create that permanent situation here, but it doesn't work. It's incompatible. It's not the constitutional position. This world is meant for suffering. Durkali Mashashata. So, that's the first thing. I'm thinking the temporary and permanent. The anatma, that which is not me, the body, is actually me. Everyone's identified with the body. And then, dukeshu, the sources of misery, that these are actually pleasurable. As Krishna certifies in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Yehi sansparjita bhoga dukkhayo nayevate. Those pleasures that are born from contact of the senses with the sense object. And don't forget that the mind is one of the senses. So all of the subtle pleasures of entertainment, of whatever, being praised, right, is a great pleasure. It's all sources of misery. They all simply keep us bound to this material world, birth, death, old age, and disease. So, he says this is a reverse situation. Viparya means backwards. Everything is backwards here. And in this upside-down situation, completely ignorant of my eternal nature, forgetting all about God, dvandva ramo, I try to enjoy the dualities of this world and enter deeper and deeper into darkness. This is such a perfect description of the material condition. And then the greatest tragedy of all, najane tvatvana priyam. Completely forgotten that our dearmost priyam, master, friend, lover, is Krishna. Tva atmana. Tvatma means you. So then he has a wonderful analogy here. Yadabado jalam hitva. A fool standing on the edge of an oasis looking out into the desert. He's very thirsty. Right? At his feet is a nice little pool of pure water. Now no pollution. Very pure. But unfortunately, patichannam turudbabai, it is covered over by vegetation that has grown up from the water. Just as this material world has come from Krishna, but it covers our knowledge of Krishna, isn't it? The material energy? Or as a cloud produced by the sun that evaporates the water from the ocean, covers our vision of the sun. The sun can't be covered. You go above the clouds, there's the sun. But our little vision can be covered. So out of this little pool of water, which is the source of all pleasure for the man's dying of thirst, or the person dying of thirst, you can't see it. So what does he see out in the desert? There's a nice lake, but it's a mirage, called the Mrigatrishna. Mrigatrishna means that which animals thirst after. In other words, the fools. The fools go for the ever receding pleasures of this world. They never can quite get it, and it's simply caused them to wander aimlessly. So abhyeti is running. Naturally, run. Abhyeti bhagatishnam vai, after this illusory pleasure called the mirage of the happiness in this world. And in a similar way, tadvat tvaham paranmukha, I have also turned away from you. Paranmukha is very graphic. Sanskrit has all of these wonderful graphic images. Paranmukha literally means turning one's face away, from Krishna, right? We're taught that don't turn your back on the deity, right? Everyone, we taught that as soon as you enter the temple. Don't sit with the deity. That's an offense, right? So it's an offense, plus we forget about Krishna. So we've done that since time immemorial, and he's identifying this. He's saying, I'm this person who's doing this. So now, this is a good thing, because he's analyzed the problem, right? We're also able to understand. I mean, does anyone have any different idea about this? This is such an obvious analysis of our situation, right? This is how we got here. So now comes a statement that relates to the verse that I chanted, and this is one that also is very striking. Notsaheham kripanadir. In spite of this knowledge, we know it theoretically. We may know it viscerally, but still, because of karma kama hatang mana, the mind is being dragged here and there by material desires and previous karma. It's called karmatmaka. The mind is filled with all kinds of results, reactions from previous activities. And so we're habituated to act in a certain way, and to think in a certain way, and to feel in a certain way in this material world. So this is called kama karma hatang mana. And therefore, my intelligence is crippled. by all of these things. Kripa nadi, and I don't have the strength to control my mind. Notsahe hum rodham. Notsahe hum kripa nadi kama kama hatang mana rodham. Rodham means to restrain the senses and the mind. The mind is the key. If you can control the mind, then the senses will follow. But if the senses have control of the mind, right, the lower self controlling the higher self, then you're remember the analogy? You're in that chariot of the body, right, sitting next to the intelligence, and you're holding on to the reins, which is the mind, but the horses are going wild down that dangerous mountain path, right? That's our situation. So, riyamanamitasthata, dragging me here and there. My intelligence is so crippled that I cannot find the strength to curb my mind, which is disturbed by material desires and activities, constantly dragged here and there by my obstinate senses. So now here's the situation. Intellectually, I understand what I have to do, right? I may have read the Bhagavad Gita 100 times, right? But if I've allowed my mind to continue to dwell on the sense objects and acted on them, then I won't have the strength of intelligence to control the lower self. And so I'll find myself in the quandary, right? So how we can relate to that? So then he has this next verse. He says, "Still, my Lord, I'm still falling at your lotus feet, because even I know that someone as polluted as myself and is unqualified is not worthy of your lotus feet. Asatam durapam, very difficult to attain by the asat. I think by your mercy it's possible." Now this is a central point in our philosophy of how why we're sitting here, why this movement was able to grow. Lord Chaitanya, Krishna himself, he blasted open this misconception that only those who are, Brahmins, always those who have taken birth in Brahmin family, perform some of purusharya, means previous, purifying activity, they can take up the process. They can take up the process of purification. Lord Chaitanya specifically, blasted that open by making the Sankirtan movement available to everyone. And as we know very well, Haridas Thakur, even Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, who identified themselves because they would fallen because they worked for the Muslims, he specifically made them, they were the highest. Namacharya Haridas Thakur. So the idea is that we take stock of ourselves. Here we are in Kali Yuga. We're so contaminated, unqualified. We don't have the strength to control the mind. But if we adopt that Trinadapi Suni Chena, Tododapi Sishnana, if we're tolerant of our situation, if we're as humble as a blade of grass, we don't expect anything, any honor, but we call out with absolute helpless and hopeless desperation to the Lord through the holy name and through our service and every other way, then Krishna responds out of his mercy and makes us qualified, empowers us to control the mind and control the senses, actually become devotees. But we can't lose that desperate mood. If we think that we're far along, we're secure, and Krishna will, through Maya, will slap us down. We become. So then he has an interesting statement here, because after all, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to focus the mind on Krishna. So one who has become eligible for getting liberated from samsara, in other words, whose liberation is at hand and he's longing for it, who really wants it, then by the mercy of the Lord and by serving and worshiping the devotee, namely the spiritual master, one can place one's mind on Krishna. In other words, become Krishna conscious. Now, there's a wonderful relative verse to that, and that is Prahlad Maharaj instructions to his father, where his father is, clearly, externally, of course, not going to become Krishna conscious, right? He regarded Vishnu as his arch enemy. So what does Prahlad do? The original and ever worshipable instance of speaking truth to power, fearlessly, 5-year-old delicate boy, he's preaching to his father. So he says, "Don't worry, father, you'll never become Krishna conscious. Matirna Krishna padataksatova mito vipadid grihavatana." Matirna Krishna. Again, matisyat, see? To place your mind on Krishna. That someone who is, and then he analyzes, those who are grihavartanam, They've taken a vow to try to enjoy family life, right? This is their focus. And Danta Gobir, the senses are completely out of control. Vishitam Tamisram, just as Akrura says, entering further and further into darkness and illusion. And what is the result of all this? Punak punashchavita charvanana. Again and again, chewing the chewed, thinking it's new, thinking it's fresh, thinking there's hope. It's a little different than the idea of running after the dream, the mirage in the desert, but it's the same thing. You have hope. There's hope, the plan making. Prabhupada talks of plan making, right? Yes, so far I haven't really achieved real happiness, it's been a rough road, but I have a plan, right? Everybody's got a plan. I'll invest here, I'll go here, I'll do this, I'll meet this person, I'll break up with that person, I'll, whatever, right? There's always a plan. Even when people get, 60, 70, I got a plan. What plan? No plan. The plan is to die. So, but here, he's saying, Sarupasanaya. This is the key. So Prahlad says, you can't become happy. You can't become Krishna conscious, even on your own efforts, meeting with others, whatever you do. Because you're completely focused on enjoying here. And people like you, they don't understand that Vishnu is the ultimate goal of life. Prabhupada quoted this verse 100 times. Nateva dusvartikatimi Vishnam. Durashaya. Again, the difficult, impossible to achieve aspirations. Bahir artamanina. External goals of value. The mind is fixed on, the mirage, running the desert. Andayata. And you develop a philosophy, you're blind, and you follow other blind leaders, who have a similar philosophy, and everybody remains completely bound up by the strong ropes of illusion of the three modes of nature. So then what's the solution? The famous verse, Naisham Matis, here we go again with the Mati. Naisham Matistavat Uru Kramanging Spishutyanata Bhagamo Yarata. This is a wonderful phrase. So, focusing the mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Right? Matista Uru Kramang, really means spishati, touching with your mind. In other words, embracing those feet with your consciousness means service. Naisham Matis, it won't happen. Tavaduru Kramanglim, unless you do what says in the second half of the verse. But I want to focus on his second line. Ukumanglim spishati anarta apagamo hidarta. So anarta apagamo means the elimination of anartas. Lust, anger, greed, attachments, all of these things that Akrura mentioned. This is a great value. So anarta itself is an arta. Do you understand? This is what he uses. Anarta apagamo hidarta. You cannot achieve the goal, the value of getting rid of all your anartas through becoming Krishna conscious. In other words, absorbing your mind in the lotus feet of Krishna through service. Unless, who knows what? What do you have to do? Anyone know the verse? Bathe yourself in the foot dust of the pure devotee. Mahiyasam parada jobhishekam nishkinchananam dhamanita yavat. So that is the only recourse, you see. And this phrase, sadupasanaya. Now, it's a wonderful sadupasanaya, and it echoes another verse that I suddenly realized. I gave class down in Gainesville, and I was thinking of this verse. Asadupasanaya is also possible. Worshipping the impermanent. And I'd like to share that verse with you also because it's pertinent here. So this is one of the prayers of the personified Vedas, right? Very pertinent to our discussion here. So they're praying to Mahavishnu there, one of the Vedas, the Upanishads, and he said, Tvanatupatam kulai minamatma surit priyavat chadaditatom muke tahihite priyatmanicha nabadadamantaho sadupasanayatmahano yadunushaye brahman tudubaye kshadir vratah. Which means, my dear Lord, this human form of life is very suited to serve you. And when someone uses the body and the senses, mind, everything in your service, then this body becomes very dear and his best friend. So it says, Priya Atma Surit Priyavat. And on your side, you're encouraging such as the super soul. You also are always acting as the best friend and the guide and the well-wisher of living entities. So everything is fine. But alas, he says, alas, those who do not take pleasure in serving you, they take their so-called pleasure, illusory pleasure, in the dreamlike mirages of this world, what is their condition? Nabadadaman aho, alas, asadupasana. You notice that this says sadupasana. It's asadupasana, atmahano, is killing the self. Of course, you can't kill the self, but they are virtually committing spiritual suicide. And what is the result? Trying to fulfill these desires. They wander, just as it says, different bodies, different planets. Having to bear the burden of bad bodies, in other words, lower than human bodies, and human bodies in which there's no question of self-realization, which are causes of great fear. This is a very fearful existence. So this is a very wonderful verse. It gives a stark contrast. You know, here we are, we're all sitting in the human body, right? And we're extremely fortunate. Out of the billions and billions of people on this planet, there's a relative, really handful, more like a thimbleful, you know, of people who even think about these things, you know, and even less who have come in touch with the true Siddhanta as given by Srila Prabhupada, you know, Lord Chaitanya's being Gauravani Pachayane, you know. So these kind of statements should how should I say, should encourage us to be more determined, more enthusiastic in following devotional service. You know, these are all statements of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, one thing about these prayers, I'll go on for a minute, and then we'll have some questions, discussion. So this kind of, there's like this is the end of this section of his prayers, and then he has two prayers at the end, in which he's offering obeisances again, right? Now it's interesting, the first one is offering obeisance to God, you know, to the Supreme in general, not to you. You know, there's a difference. When you're addressing Krishna as you, it's a more intimate thing, you know? So the first one is Namo Vijnana Matraya, obeisance to the Supreme Absolute Truth, you know? But the last one is to you, Namaste. It's like Namaste, Saraswati Devi. That's obeisance to Srila Prabhupada directly. The other one is unto him in the third person, the first one. So Namaste Vasudevaya, and then he has the prayer. The very last words, Pahimam Prabhu. I've surrendered now to you, please protect me. Now this is characteristic of prayers. There's many prayers in the Bhagavatam, and under the heading of Vandanam. Right? This is one of the 9 processes. But isn't it also paying obeisances, right? Vandanam, but it's prayer. And the reason is because these sets of prayers, such as Prahlad's prayers, Kunti's prayers, Brahma's prayers, and now Akrura's prayers, and the many others, they generally have these 3 elements. There's the obeisances, there's glorification, and then there's an actual request. You know, and here this question is this: protect me, please protect me from the material energy, which is a perfectly valid form of prayer. What did Kunti pray? Please let me only think of you, and not let my mind. What is it? That O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. Now that's not our last prayer. Our last prayer is a nice glorification of Krishna. And then the very last word, Namaha. See, offers the basis. First word, Namaste. What is that? Namaste. Namas. How's Kunti prayers begin? Does anyone know? No. Namaste Purusham Tvadhyam Ishwaram. Yeah. So she begins with Namaste, and she ends with Namaste. So these, you can look for this. And this is how also very important for us. We're always offering obeisance, Namaha. What's the essential element of Namaha? I'll reiterate this in case you forgot. It's very simple. Not mine. Nama. Real obeisances, dandavats, you're offering everything. Body, mind, words, everything. What does that mean? The person whom you're offering obeisances to, spiritual master, Krishna, you're saying, this body is not mine, it's yours. Do with it as you like. This is in the Padma Purana. It's explained what Nama actually means. So that's why we said, Savadana. Right? We say, Bando mi Savadana mate. I offer my bando, obeisances, with great attention. And this song, I must say this because it's true, the translation we have, as wonderful as it is, and we all say it, is not exactly accurate. It doesn't say there, with great awe and what is it? How do we say it? The lotus feet are a spiritual master, the only way which you can attain pure devotional service. I offer my obeisances unto the lotus feet with great awe and reverence. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not what the song says. The song says, offer your obeisances. It's imperative, with great attention. Savadana, I was told that in Bengal, it's a Bengali, of course, you'll find that on the road sometimes. Pay attention, watch out, caution, right? Isn't it? So that's what's meant. And then, just to continue with this, Guru Mukha Padma Vakachita, it's an imperative. It's not saying, oh, my only desire is to have my heart, to hear the words of the spiritual master. That'd be nice if it was true. We'd all be pure devotees. But what he's saying there is, oh, brothers, sisters, make your mind one with the words of the spiritual master. Don't allow anything else. Don't desire anything else. It's an injunction. Anyway, so he's praying for protection. Protection from what? Protection from, illusion. He's not praying for protection from Kamsa. That's a given. That Krishna will, kill Kamsa. But as he's explained a few verses earlier, I don't have the strength to control my mind. I'm being victimized by my out of control mind. This nice prayer of, okay, we're almost through. On with this, of Madhavendra Puri. It's quoted in the beginning of the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami, right near the start. And he says, Kamadinam katina katita paldita dhurnideshas tesham jata maina karuna natrapano prashanti utsrid jayatam hati yodapate sampratam labdha buddhistvama ayatak shadanam abhagyam mam niyung swapnadasi. Here, now, he actually personifies, the kama, krodha, lobha, all of these lust as slave drivers. He says, in how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. So this is a wonderful prayer. Prabhupada would quote this verse. And it's exactly in the mood of Akura's prayers here. He's already said, I can't do it on my own. I'm throwing myself at your lotus feet. Now please protect me and give me service at your lotus feet. This is a mood that we can have. So any discussion on these points? I can read the first verse again. There's too many translations to read. But he starts out, Bhagavan Jiva Loko, he's analyzing what's going on. O Supreme Lord, the living entities in this world are bewildered by your illusory energy, becoming involved in the false concepts of I and my. They are forced to wander along the paths of fruitive work. Comments, questions? Oh, go ahead, Shiva Kumar. The erstwhile giver of this class, but he insisted that I guess.
I think you did a super excellent
Glorious to Srila Prabhupada.
For such a short notice. Yeah. Just to supplement what you said, it stated that of the 8,400,000 species, 8 million species have no knowledge of self-realization. And of the 400,000, just a small amount have a chance to take up to the process. And yet they are negligent. It's stated that old age comes like a tigress. Disease attacks like an enemy. Life escapes like water from a broken pot. Who is at ease? 100 years is too little. Half is sleep and idleness. The rest is wasted due to frivolous studies and disease and old age and death.
Yeah, it's good. Did you write that?
Yeah. That's from one of the Puranas.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
So I got a quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
Akura was not a Brahmanan or a Kshatriya, but yet, I mean, he made such powerful prayers, such deep realization. How
I'm not sure what Varna he was. You sure he's not a Kshatriya?
Pardon?
You sure? I mean, I'm not questioning it. I'm just trying to recall if it's defined.
I thought he was from the lower caste.
Anyway, that's another illustration of how it doesn't matter where you come from. You know, it all depends on your sincerity and your contact, you know, with devotees, and your good fortune and determination like that. Anyone else have any cogent comments? Go ahead, Madhumona. You gotta have something. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, we'll end with a little song. You haven't heard this one before. Unfortunately, I didn't put it into a poem, but I was, I've been coming here for a while, since the installation of Krishna Balaram, and I'm always stunned by their beauty and attractiveness. So I discovered a song about Krishna Balaram in the Gopal Champu. I don't know how familiar you are with this song. I'm just going to chant a couple of verses. There's a bunch of verses, but it's really sweet. It starts with the refrain is Ramo Rama Nujahiti Yukadam Kutanatabesh Yapati Gayati Sakagana Yugadam. Of course, it's meant to be sung, but this is the meter. So what it says is, I think Gopi is singing this. Rama and Krishna, just like at the beginning of chapter 21, the Venu Geet begins with two verses where the gopis are singing about Krishna and Balaram. As described in the commentary, they're a little embarrassed that if they just sing about Krishna, then their parents may see them, so before they do that, they sing about Krishna and Balaram together. So this whole song is about Krishna and Balaram. And said, Rama and Ramanuja, his younger brother, Balaram and his younger brother, they're entering the forest now with a beautiful aspect of dancers, expert dancers. And several groups of their friends are singing about them, singing as they dance, as they walk along the path. That's the refrain, so that's the meditation. So a couple of my favorite verses, it describes them going forward, and it says, Vanchita pinchava dipadi lanchita maninati yanchita kesham dadadiva hadidanu nanakatatara valivalita vadalesham. And what that means is that they place these little peacock plumes. You never heard this before. I was amazed to hear it. Little peacock plumes, exquisite peacock plumes, that are very desirable, throughout their hair. And also they place little jewels, which are probably diamonds in there. So they've got these diamonds and the peacock plumes. And it describes that it's just like the bow of Hare. Bow of Hare is the same as the bow of Indra. It means rainbows. So their hair and their head looks like small clouds with little rainbows and stars throughout. Have you ever heard that image before? No, I never did. Taravali means a series of stars. And then this is the one that really attracted my mind, because the bees play a very important role in Vrindavan. They're not ordinary bees. They're humming and buzzing, but they're singing stutis and glorification of Krishna. This is mentioned in chapter 35 of Gopi's prayer. Sing of Krishna as he wanders in the forest. So the same thing is here. So it describes Mala Mala Padimala Vali Vali Vapodali Valada Sadesham Alijam Kutinata Kola Halabahalakutu Halabesham. So you can see Krishna Balaram, they're both wearing these exquisite garlands of forest flowers, right? Fragrant flowers. Now, in addition to that, so Mala Mala Padimala, this fragrance is emanating. And Vali Vali. Now, Vali usually means wrinkle, but in this case it means a little line, I looked it up, a little line of fragrant unguents that their mothers apply. They don't use Q-tips like we do, but they probably have some kind of instrument. So they've got these beautiful fragrance, that fragrance just adds to the fragrance of the garlands. And in addition, we know that their bodies themselves have a very attractive fragrance. So you imagine this is like, it's completely intoxicating to the bees. So it says, Mala Mala Padamala, Vali Vali, of the Vapur, on their Vapur, their bodies. And then Ali means bees. So you have Mala Mala Padimala, Vali Vali Vapur, Ali, Valita Sadesham, surrounding them. Valita means surrounding wherever they are. So these big swarms of bees are coming like that, Well, what are they doing? Ali Jankriti, they're buzzing like crazy. But the buzzing is not just humming, it's stuti. They're chanting these verses about Krishna. So all the with great volume, very loudly, and great enthusiasm. You see? And the last verse, that will end here, it says, Sitam asitam babodasitam pitam vasanam yasya gitam tadidam hiti gokulamana gokulamayatatagamapitam. Which means sitam asitam. So their bodies are light and dark and light. So that means Krishna and Balaram, right? Balaram is light and Krishna is dark. But their clothes are just the opposite. Asitam pitam. Balaram's wearing dark blue in this case, and Krishna's wearing yellow. Pitam. Vasanam yasyata gitam. And those garments themselves are glorified in great song, beautified. And then she has this last verse. Taditam hita gokulam on Gokula. So Gokula, of course, we know Gokula is the place where all the cows live, right? That's Gokula. But all Gokula also means herds of cows, a big herd of cows. Gokula. So the play on words. So if these two brothers, they herd their cows, they're following their cows, and herding their cows into Gokula. Yaditam yadi Gokulam anu Gokulam ayatitatagamatitam. Then I will see them, and all of my suffering will be gone. Agam means not only sin, but suffering as well. Look it up. Atitam, so I will transcend all my suffering. So that indicates it's a gopi, longing for the return of Krishna, and Balaram in this case, from the forest. So if anyone's interested in this song, it's a little difficult on the Sanskrit side. But hopefully, if I get inspired and I'm fortunate, I can write an English poem version of it. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
don't keep up with it much. I got some of her dolls.